Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are going to break something, or at least we're going to try to stare through something that maybe, just maybe, was never really there to begin with. You know that feeling when you're watching a movie or maybe a TV show? Think of something like Fleabag or Deadpool, and suddenly the actor just stops, turns their head, and looks directly at you.
Right into the camera. The fourth wall break.
Right, the fourth wall break. It's a literary device. It's, a wink, a joke.
It lets you in on the secret.
Exactly. It acknowledges that, hey, this is all just a show, you're safe on your couch, and I'm just an actor hitting my mark.
Yeah.
But today, we are taking that concept out of the theater.
And we're applying it to, well, the room you're sitting in right now.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a terrifying thought, isn't it? Because in the theater, that fourth wall is a safety feature. It separates the action from the observer.
It's a container.
It keeps the tragedy on the stage so that it doesn't spill onto your lap.
Yeah.
But the material we are looking at today asks a very specific and I think a very unsettling question.
Which is?
What if the fourth wall isn't just a device? What if it's a metaphysical cage? And more importantly, what happens when the things behind that wall start looking back at you?
Oof. Okay, yeah. And to explore this, we have a stack of sources that is, frankly, a little unhinged in the best possible way.
It's an eclectic mix, to be sure.
We are centering our whole discussion on a fictional universe, the world of an author named Joshua Blake and his book Rootraces. But here's the kicker. We're treating this fiction as a lens.
A lens to view some very real, very dense occult philosophy. We've got texts from the Gnostic anthropologist Samael Aun Weor. We have the anthroposophical heavy lifter Rudolf Steiner.
And the chaos magic of Austin Osman Spare. And, of course, the visionary art of William Blake.
It seems like a lot, but the mission here is actually quite focused. We're trying to figure out if imagination is just, make-believe, just neurons firing in a bored brain.
Or is this something more?
Or if it is actually a sensory organ for a higher dimension. And perhaps more importantly, we really need to talk about egregores.
Egregores. Just that word alone. It gives me the creeps.
It should. The concept is that the human mind can literally create monsters, independent psychic entities.
That eventually get hungry.
And they bite back. So this deep dive is about finding the cracks in the world where the draft comes in. It's about the grand play and this idea that reality is held together by nothing more than an agreement of perception.
So buckle up. We are starting with the fiction, but I have a feeling it's going to get very real very quickly.
I think so too.
Let's talk about Joshua Blake's Rootraces.
Right. So Rootraces presents us with a world that feels like a noir fever dream. It's set in this supernatural version of Dallas, Texas.
But this isn't the Dallas of oil tycoons and football stadiums that people might know.
Not at all. This is a city that has been half drowned.
Yeah, the descriptions are so visceral. It's not just it rained a lot. It's flooded streets, perpetual storms. There's a sense of decay that goes way beyond just the physical buildings.
It feels humid just reading it.
It really does.
It's a setting where let's say the infrastructure of reality itself is rotting. And the players in this story they're very specific. We have this character, Mirandula.
He's described as a hacker or magician.
Yeah.
I love that archetype. It feels so modern. In the old myths, wizards used staffs and they spoke Latin.
Right.
But in this world, the hacker is the wizard. It's someone who can see the code behind reality and actually manipulate it.
He's not just typing on a keyboard. He's trying to edit the source code of the world.
He is the disruption. He's upsetting the status quo.
And opposing him, or at least maintaining the structure, is this entity named Ramon.
Ramon. He seems to be the one enforcing the rules of this fourth wall we're talking about.
Precisely. Ramon represents the rigid structure, the cage of agreement, and then you have the muscle.
The Harbor Knights.
Yes.
The Harbor Knights.
Okay, we need to spend some time on these guys because this image has been stuck in my head since I read the notes. They rule East Dallas, right?
They do. But because it's flooded, they aren't riding motorcycles like some biker gang. They're riding motorboats through submerged boulevards.
It's such a powerful image. You can almost hear the engines echoing off the abandoned storefronts. It's gritty.
It is. The text says they're cruising wake to wake, and they're cradling AK-47s like heirlooms. But it's their whole aesthetic that is truly deeply disturbing.
It goes beyond just being villains.
Way beyond. It mentions they wear these black leather cuts with patches of, krakens dragging cargo ships into Red Seas. Pirate imagery.
But mixed in with that, they have Nazi regalia.
Yeah. Iron Crosses, Luftwaffe Eagles, SS Panzerkampf. It's jarring.
And this is crucial. We have to be really careful here because it's easy to dismiss this as just, edgy villains for shock value.
Sure.
But Blake is doing something very specific. They aren't just racist in the conventional sense. They are described as collectors of legacy.
Collectors of legacy? What does that even mean?
They believe in evil unrepentant. They treat World War II not as a historical event, but as scripture. They are actively trying to keep a dead frequency alive.
Wow. It felt gross reading it. Like, not just bad guy gross, but spiritually gross. Yeah. Like they were damp with something worse than just the river water.
That reaction is exactly what the author intends. They are feeding something. But we will absolutely get to the metaphysical implications of that later when we talk about egregores.
Okay.
First, we have to understand the cage that they're patrolling.
Right. And there is a specific line in the book that really just stopped me in my tracks. A character explains that the cage holding humanity isn't iron, it's agreement.
That's it. That is the core thesis of the grand play.
So it's not a physical thing at all.
No. The idea presented here is that the world, the objective reality we think we're walking through, is actually a stage. But a stage doesn't light up unless there's an audience.
The text says the stage does not light unless one pair of eyes is open.
Think about that.
Which implies that if we all stop agreeing that the walls are there, they might just disappear.
Or worse, we might finally see what's been standing behind them this whole time.
That's terrifying.
It is. It suggests that what we call objective reality is actually just subjective consensus. We are all, metaphorically, holding hands and agreeing that this is a table, this is a law, this is a limit.
And if you break that agreement,
you break the cage. But the cage is also a shield.
That's the scary part, isn't it? If the cage goes down, what comes in? The book introduces some truly horrific villains who seem to operate in that gap. There's a character named Klingzor.
Ah, Klingzor. A character of pure tragedy and just horror.
The text describes him as someone who tried to storm heaven. He wanted purity. He wanted spiritual power.
But he tried to buy it with pain. He mutilated himself, castrated himself, effectively. He thought that suffering would grant him entry to the divine.
Cutting his own flesh, turning himself into a eunuch because he thought pain would buy him purity. That is.
Yeah.
It's completely Why would anyone think maiming themselves opens a door to heaven?
It's a distortion of asceticism, a very extreme one. You see this in some historical sects, the idea that the body is the enemy of the spirit, and to free the spirit you have to punish the flesh.
But he got it wrong.
He got it catastrophically wrong. He didn't transcend, he just broke himself.
Yeah.
And when heaven didn't answer his call, Ramon did.
Ramon the jailer, of course.
And Ramon granted him revenge. It's a classic Faustian bargain, but it's grounded in this very specific kind of occult despair. Klingzor becomes a creature of the cage, enforcing the rules because he completely destroyed his own ability to ever escape them.
And then there's the red disgust.
Yes.
It's described in the book almost like a frequency. There's a scene with a radio broadcast, and it's not just noise on the radio. It's an encroaching dread, a feeling that something is fundamentally wrong with the texture of reality.
It's a psychic nausea. And it connects directly to the corporate front in the novel.
Pitchfork Energies.
Yes.
Best name for an evil corporation ever, by the way.
It is a little on the nose, isn't it?
Just a bit.
And it's led by the Janus family. Janus, of course, being the two-faced god of doorways and transitions.
Right.
But what's so fascinating is how Joshua Blake mixes this mundane corporate evil of a utility company with profound metaphysical horror. They aren't just selling you electricity.
No, the text mentions they are involved in Tibetan karma-dodging rituals. This part, I have to admit, it confused me a bit. The character Danny calls it Powa. What exactly is that?
Powa, or P-H-O-W-A, is a real concept in Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah.
It's the practice of conscious dying. It's the transference of one's consciousness at the moment of death.
Okay.
The idea is that a master practitioner can eject their consciousness from their body and direct it to a pure land, essentially bypassing the chaotic Bardo states and avoiding a bad rebirth.
So it's meant to be a liberation technique, a sacred practice.
Exactly. It is sacred technology. But Pitchfork Energies, this corporate monstrosity, has appropriated it. They're using Fawa, not for enlightenment, but for karma dodging.
So they commit all these atrocities, environmental destruction, exploitation, whatever, and then they use this ritual to, what, wash the money.
To wash the soul. Imagine a CEO who ruins 1,000 lives, but he has a team of, let's call them black magicians, perform a ritual to transfer his karmic debt onto someone else,
Oh, wow.
or to shunt his consciousness into a clean vessel before the consequences of his actions can catch up to him. It is the ultimate spiritual tax evasion.
Boring money, as one of the characters calls it. Boring money, which means it is never just money.
And that's the thing. It creates this picture where the supernatural isn't in some Gothic castle on a hill. It's a line item in a budget report. It's a flooded street in Dallas.
It's a guy in a fur coat buying drugs from a twitching addict on the street. It's so grounded.
And that grounding, I think, makes the leap to the factual occult material much, much easier. Because when we switch from Rootraces to the writings of Samael Aun Weor, we start to see the mechanics behind the fiction.
Okay, let's make that jump. We have established the fictional cage. Now let's talk about the actual mechanics of the fourth wall in occult theory. We have sources here from Samael Aun Weor talking about the fourth coordinate.
Right.
Okay, help me out here. I've seen Interstellar, I know the Tesseract scene, but what does Weir actually mean by the fourth dimension? Is it just time?
Not just time, no. He calls it the fourth vertical. To understand it, we have to look at how we perceive things now. In our normal state, in our standard three-dimensional world, how do you see an object?
I look at it, I see the surface of it.
Right. If you look at me right now, you see the front of my face. You don't see the back of my head.
Yeah.
You definitely don't see my internal organs.
Hopefully not.
You are seeing a 2D projection of a 3D object.
Sure, that makes sense.
But Samael Aun Weor argues that this is a limitation of our sensory apparatus. It's not a limitation of reality itself. He describes the fourth dimension as a state where perception becomes, well, objective.
Objective.
If you were viewing a cube from the fourth dimension, you wouldn't just see the front face. You'd see the front, the back, the top, the bottom, and the inside, all simultaneously.
Like an X-ray vision.
It's better than an X-ray. Think of the classic flatland analogy. Imagine a little stick figure drawing on a piece of paper.
Okay.
That stick figure lives in 2D. You can only see lines. If you, a 3D human, hover your finger above the paper, you can see inside his little drawn house. You can see his internal organs if he had any. To him, you are a god. You're appearing out of nowhere.
So we are saying we are the stick figures on the page.
Exactly. And there are things hovering above our paper. He talks about hyperspace and the Gina state. This is the idea that a physical body can be taken out of the third dimension and placed into the astral world, which is the fourth dimension.
So we're talking about teleportation.
Yeah.
Or phasing through walls.
In a sense. It's modifying the vibration of the physical matter so it no longer interacts with 3D obstacles. If you lift that stick figure off the paper, he can move anywhere on the page without having to cross the lines drawn on it.
Okay. But, and this is where we get back to the horror aspect of all this, the fourth dimension isn't just a playground for enlightened masters, is it? It has a dark side.
A very dark side. This is where the witches and sorceresses come in. And we have to be clear, we are not talking about the Harry Potter kind or the modern Wiccan interpretation.
No, the source material here is very specific and, frankly, quite dark. Wynne describes entities, he often calls them witches or harpies, who travel through what he calls the inferior vital world.
Which is a lower aspect of the fourth dimension.
They're like the bottom feeders of this hyperspace.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And their goal is, well, it's vampirism,
They steal energy.
essentially. They attach to their victims to steal vitality. The text mentions they often appear as hags or sometimes as beautiful women, depending on the illusion they want to project to lure you in.
They're parasites that can't create their own energy, so they have to harvest it from the living.
Precisely.
Now, this is the part that, to me, felt like a survival guide. The sources actually list specific defenses against these entities, and I have to be honest, when I first read it, it sounded like pure superstition, like old wives' tales.
It does sound like folklore on the surface.
Mustard seeds. Black mustard seeds, specifically.
And scissors.
And scissors.
Ah.
It sounds silly until you break down the symbology and the physics that they're implying.
Okay, walk me through the physics of a mustard seed. How does that work?
The source claims that the mustard seed represents the ens seminis, the sexual potential, the raw life force. In Gnostic theory, these entities are attracted to wasted energy, to entropy.
Okay.
Scattering the seeds is a symbolic, and they would argue, an energetic declaration of retaining one's potential. It creates a field of life that is repulsive to these entities of death.
I can kind of see the symbolic resonance there, but what about the scissors? Steel scissors, open in the shape of a cross. That feels incredibly specific. This is where it gets into what you could call metaphysical geometry. First, the material. Steel. Iron.
Cold iron.
Exactly. Cold iron has a massive history in folklore for repelling spirits, fae, all sorts of things.
Right.
Why? The theory is that iron disrupts magnetic fields. If these entities are composed of some kind of electromagnetic or astral fluid, then iron acts like static interference. It grounds them out. It disrupts their cohesion.
And the shape, the cross.
It's not just a religious symbol here, though that adds a layer. It's a coordinate system. The cross represents the X and Y axis. By opening the scissors into a cross, you are physically asserting the laws of the third dimension.
You're cutting the geometry.
Yes, you're blocking the entrance from the Z-axis, or the fourth vertical, as Weir calls it.
So it's a trap or barrier.
It's a barrier. You put the open scissors under the bed or in the corner of a room, and you are creating a dead zone where the geometry of hyperspace cannot easily function.
It's fascinating because it sounds like superstition, but when you frame it within this multidimensional theory, it sounds like, well, technology.
Primitive technology, maybe, but technology.
That is exactly how occultists view it. Magic is just the science we haven't built a meter for yet.
Which leads us to the biggest question of all. If these things exist in a dimension we can't see with our physical eyes, how do we even know they are there? Is it just imagination?
And here comes the skepticism. It's all in your head. You're just imagining things.
I mean, that's the rational response, right? If I think I see a hag in my room, I probably just ate some bad cheese before bed.
Of course. But what if in your head is just another location? What if the brain isn't a generator of consciousness, but a receiver?
Whoa. Okay. Unpack that.
We need to distinguish between two things here. Samael Aun Weor makes a very sharp, very clear distinction between what he calls mechanical imagination and conscious imagination.
Okay, let's break those down. Mechanical imagination is
What?
Daydreaming.
That's the noise. That's the static. Have you ever been in the shower and suddenly you're having a furious argument with a coworker who isn't even there?
Oh, absolutely. I have fired people in the shower. I have won lottery jackpots. I have given epic acceptance speeches for awards I will never win.
We all have. That is mechanical imagination.
Right.
It is associative, it's chaotic, and it's involuntary. It's the ego projecting its fears and its desires onto an internal screen.
It's a movie projector running on a loop in an empty theater.
That's a perfect analogy. It consumes your energy, but it produces nothing real.
Okay, so that's the bad kind, or at least the useless kind.
It's the sleep state, as he would call it, but conscious imagination. That is something else entirely. Weir calls it the translucence of the soul.
For the wise, to imagine is to see. That's the quote that stood out.
Yes. Conscious imagination is directed. It is active perception. It is using the faculty of imagination not to invent things, but to perceive non-physical realities.
So it's like tuning a radio dial to a frequency that actually exists, rather than just listening to the static of your own brain.
Exactly. And this brings us to another Blake. Not Joshua Blake, the author of Rootraces, but William Blake, the poet and artist from the 18th century.
And the resemblance in the themes between the two Blakes is, frankly, uncanny, which is why we had to include him in this stack. William Blake was an absolute master of this conscious imagination.
He had that concept of the vegetative eye.
Yes, he said, "I know that this world is a world of imagination and vision. I see everything I paint in this world, but everybody does not see alike."
So to the vegetative eye, the normal physical eye tree is just a green blob. It's firewood, it's shade, it's a biological object.
But to the visionary imagination,
To the visionary, that same tree is a manifestation of divine energy. It is infinite. Blake famously looked at the sun and didn't just see a round disk of fire, somewhat like a guinea.
no, he saw an innumerable company of the heavenly host crying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty."
That is a very different way of looking at a sunrise.
It is. But, and this is critical, Blake also saw the darkness. He looked at London during the Industrial Revolution, and he saw literal hell. He saw the dark satanic mills.
He didn't just see factories and pollution.
He saw the spiritual reality of what those factories were doing to the human soul. He saw the smog as actual demons choking the city.
So both Blake's William, the historical poet, and Joshua, the fictional author, they're both arguing that what we dismiss as imagination is actually a sensory organ. It's a way of stripping the paint off that fourth wall.
Correct. And Rudolf Steiner adds another layer to this. He talks about shadowy thinking.
Shadowy thinking, it sounds like a detective novel.
Steiner argues that our intellect, our clever, logical brain, is actually dead. It's a reflection. He uses the analogy of the afterimage. If you stare at a bright light or a red rose and then close your eyes, you see an afterimage, right?
Yeah, of course. Usually a green or gray blotch just floating in the dark.
Steiner says our thoughts are like that afterimage. They are the dead reflections of a living spiritual reality. We are thinking in shadows.
So the goal of esoteric training is to turn around and look at the object that's casting the shadow.
To look at the rose itself, not just its ghost.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to wake up. You have to stop sleeping while you're awake. Steiner also uses a camera analogy. He says the astral body takes pictures of the spirit realm during sleep.
We wake up with these undeveloped negatives in our subconscious.
And if we don't develop them,
They stay in the dark. Or worse, they manifest as anxiety, as this vague dread, kind of like the red disgust in Rootraces.
yeah.
We feel the pressure of these undeveloped negatives, but we can't see the image.
Okay, so we've established that thoughts might be real things, or at least reflections of real things. But can they bite?
And now we arrive at the Egregores.
This is the monster movie portion of our deep dive.
In a way, but it's a psychological horror. We are looking at the works of Austin Osman Spare and Eliphas Levi here. An egregore is, by definition, an autonomous psychic entity created by a collective group mind or an intense individual focus.
So if enough people believe in something, it literally comes alive.
Effectively. Levi described it as a fluidic phantom. But Austin Osman Spare took it to a much more psychological and, I think, terrifying level. He had this phrase, man has willed man.
Meaning we created ourselves.
Meaning we create our gods, we create our demons, and we create our monsters. They are externalized projections of our internal states. But once they're out there, they have a life of their own. They have a survival instinct.
Wait, a survival instinct? You mean a thought form actually wants to stay alive?
Absolutely. Think about a simple obsession. If you're obsessed with an ex-partner or a fear of failure, you try to stop thinking about it. What happens?
It fights back. It comes back stronger. It wakes me up at 3 in the morning.
Exactly. That is the egregore fighting for its life. It needs your attention to survive. Attention is its food. If you ignore it, it starves. So it provokes you to get you to feed it.
Spare had a technique for this, didn't he? Sigils.
Yes. Sigil magic is very popular in chaos magic circles today, but Spare's theory behind it is fascinatingly Freudian. He talks about the psychic sensor.
The psychic sensor. That sounds like the part of my brain that tells me not to say stupid things at parties.
That's basically it. It is the conscious mind, it's the governor, it's the part of you that doubts. If you say to yourself, I want to be confident, the psychic sensor immediately pops up and says, yeah, right. Remember that time you tripped in front of everyone in high school?
It rejects the magic.
It rejects the change.
Yeah.
So how do you bypass the sensor?
You use a sigil.
Right. You take your desire, you write it out, and then you mash the letters down into an abstract symbol. A squiggle, a drawing, something that doesn't look like words anymore. The conscious mind looks at it and says, that's just a doodle. It gets bored, it lets its guard down.
And then what?
And then you fire it into the subconscious. Spare talked about achieving gnosis.
Which is exhaustion. Or something else.
It can be. Exhaustion, sexual ecstasy, extreme terror, deep meditation, any state of no mind. In that split second where the conscious mind shuts down, where the sensor blinks, you visualize the sigil.
And it bypasses the gatekeeper. It plants the seed directly in the deep soil of the subconscious.
Precisely. And the subconscious doesn't doubt. It just executes commands. It's like entering a command line code into your own personal reality.
But there's a twist, and this is where it gets dangerous.
This is the really dangerous part. If you don't control this process, if you have deep repressed fears, deep repressed hatred, your subconscious is manufacturing egregores out of that material too, all the time.
You are printing your own monsters without even realizing it.
And those monsters get hungry.
So let's bring this back to Rootraces. We mentioned the Harbor Knights earlier, the guys with the Nazi memorabilia.
Yes. In the book, they are collecting these items, SS caps, daggers, and so on. A materialist, or maybe a sociologist, would say they were just neo-Nazis fetishizing history, just bad people doing bad cosplay.
Right.
But in the context of egregores, what they're doing is much, much worse.
They are feeding an old egregore.
Exactly. Think about the Third Reich not just as a political movement, but as a massive occult working. Millions and millions of people focusing intense emotion, hatred, and worship on specific symbols for over a decade.
That would create a colossal egregore, a massive thought form of pure destruction.
And when the war ended,
The entity didn't just vanish.
ideas don't die just because an army surrenders. It starved. It went dormant. It became a ghost hanging in the astral plane.
So by wearing the clothes, by adopting the symbols, by acting out the violence, the Harbor Knights aren't just remembering history.
They are resuscitating it. They are feeding it with their blood and their attention. They are collectors of legacy, as Blake writes. They are offering themselves up as batteries for a dead god of hate.
That is profoundly disturbing. It shifts the whole morality from these guys are jerks to these guys are necromancers.
It does. And it makes me wonder about Ramon, the ruler of the cage in the book.
If we apply this theory, then Ramon is likely the ultimate egregore.
He has to be. He is the manifestation of humanity's collective desire for rules. We want to be told what to do. We want safety. We want a fourth wall to separate us from the scary, chaotic unknown.
So we collectively dreamed up a jailer.
We built the cage, and then we dreamed up a guard to lock us inside it.
Man has willed man.
It always comes back to that.
So we have the cage, we have the monsters we built to patrol it. Is there any way out, or at least a way to fight back?
Rudolf Steiner would say that fighting back requires understanding the battlefield. And he warns that we usually get the battlefield completely wrong. We think it's simple.
Good versus evil, God versus devil.
The classic title fight. Steiner says that is a simplistic view that actually helps the enemy because it's not a two-way street. He introduces an adversarial triad. It's a three-way dynamic.
Okay, introduce the players.
First, on one side, you have Lucifer.
The devil.
Well, in Steiner's view, Lucifer is the tempter of flight. He's the false light. Lucifer wants you to be a dreamer. He wants you to be arrogant, artistic, disconnected from the earth.
He wants you to think you are a god without doing any of the work.
Precisely. Give me a modern example.
Okay, think of the worst aspects of influencer culture. Pure vanity. Living entirely in a digital projection of your life, thinking you are too special for the mundane, everyday world.
Or spiritual fanaticism. People who are so enlightened, they ignore the suffering of the person standing right next to them.
That is Luciferic. It's hot, fast, and completely ungrounded.
Okay. False spirituality. So on the other side, you have Ahriman.
Ahriman, that's a Zoroastrian name, right? For the embodiment of evil.
It is. For Steiner, Ahriman is the tempter of weight. He is the cold, hard intellect. He wants you to believe only in matter. Economics, machines, bureaucracy.
So, pitchfork energies.
Yes. Pitchfork Energies is purely Ahrimanic. Boring money. The deep deception that matters, the sole reality. Ahriman's goal is to turn humans into very efficient machines. Intelligent, logical, and soulless. The worst fears about AI are very Ahrimanic.
So Lucifer wants to burn you up and make you float away into fantasy, and Ahriman wants to freeze you solid and turn you into a spreadsheet.
And humanity is the blade of a knife balanced in between. We have to balance these forces.
Yeah.
We need enough of the Luciferic impulse to have imagination and art, and enough of the Ahrimanic impulse to understand science and build houses.
But if we fall too far into either extreme, we lose our humanity.
Yes. And then there's a third one you mentioned, the Asuras.
The Asuras are what Steiner called the coming threat. He says they are the most dangerous because they don't just want to mislead you, like Lucifer, or imprison you, like Ahriman.
What do they want?
They want to eat the I itself. They want to destroy the ego, the core of your individual consciousness. Annihilation.
That sounds like the red disgust from the book. That feeling of total erasure of self.
It does, and if you look at the character of Mirandula in Rootraces, the hacker magician, he seems to be playing this incredibly dangerous game. He is fighting the Ahrimanic cage, the rigid rules of Ramon.
But he's using Luciferic rebellion to do it. He's a trickster. He's chaotic.
He's fighting fire with fire, or maybe he's fighting ice with fire.
He is trying to find that middle path, but it's messy and dangerous.
So if the very air we breathe is filled with these invisible forces, vampiric witches, hungry egregores, Luciferian heat, and Ahrimanic cold, how do you just live? How do you protect yourself without going completely crazy?
The sources actually provide a ritual for this. It's called the Conjuration of the Four.
This was in the Gnostic texts, right? It's a defense mechanism.
It is. It's a verbal ritual that's intended to command the elements within one's own psychology. Because you have to remember the core principle, as above, so below.
If you are being attacked by an external force,
It's usually because it is hooked onto an internal flaw. If an egregore of anger attacks you, it's because it is hooked into your own anger.
so you fix the inside to seal the outside.
Precisely. The ritual uses these very specific, very powerful Latin invocations. Caput mortem, imperit tibi dominus, per vivum et devotum serpentem.
That sounds heavy. Can you translate that for us?
Roughly, it's dead head, may the Lord command thee by the living and devoted serpent. It's about commanding the earth element in yourself, the physical body, the inertia, the laziness, the fear.
And the living and devoted serpent.
In Gnostic terms, that is, the kundalini, or the internal spiritual fire, the life force. The ritual goes on to command the air, which is your thoughts, the fire, your emotions and passions, and the water, your deep energies.
It mentions angel of the blind eyes, obey or pass away with this holy water, and work winged bull or revert to the earth unless thou wilt that I should pierce thee with this sword.
It's aggressive. It's not a passive prayer. It's not, please leave me alone.
No, it is a command. It is the magician asserting authority over his own chaotic psychology. It's saying, I am the captain of this ship. There are no stowaways allowed.
If you don't have dominion over your own fear, which is earth, or your own anger, which is fire, then an external egregore of fear or anger can grab the wheel and drive you.
The conjuration is about taking the wheel back.
Yes. It brings us back to that idea of the fourth wall. The conjuration seems like a way of reinforcing your own wall, your own psychic boundary.
Or maybe choosing which wall you actually want to live behind.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Which brings us to the conclusion of this whole deep dive. There is a final twist in Rootraces that has been haunting me since I read it.
The ledger.
Yeah. There is a diary entry in the book from a character named Jave, which, that's a bold name choice, by the way.
Very bold.
The entry says, I hid the ledger behind music. I covered pain with snow.
And then it says, the snow became ash. They learned to pretend ash was normal.
That is the terrifying implication of all of this. We talk about the fourth wall as if it's a cage, but maybe it's just a decoration. Maybe our culture, our entertainment, our music, our boring money. Maybe all of it is just snow covering up a mountain of ash.
We are constantly decorating our cage. We use entertainment to drown out the silence where we might hear the egregores breathing. We use pitchfork energies, our money, our utility bills, our daily routine, to hide the metaphysical debts we owe.
Debts? What kind of debts?
Karmic debts. Energetic debts, the cost of feeding all those monsters for centuries. The book suggests that we are hiding the ledger, the cosmic record of what we've done behind the music of our civilization.
And we've learned to pretend ash was normal. That's the Ahrimanic deception, isn't it? Convincing us that this dead, gray industrial world is the only world.
It is. If you convince a prisoner that his jail cell is the entire universe, he stops trying to escape.
He starts decorating the cell.
He hangs posters on the bars and forgets they are made of iron.
So the question we have to ask you, the listener, and ourselves is this. If the fourth wall is just an agreement, who signed it for you?
And if egregores are real, who is writing the script of your life right now? Is it you? Or is it a collective thought form of who you should be, something handed to you by your parents, your culture, your deepest fears?
Are you the audience watching the play? Or are you on stage right now reciting lines you didn't write for an audience you can't see?
It makes you want to look around for the prompter in the wings, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes me want to find those mustard seeds.
You should probably keep them handy.
We're going to leave you with one final image to mull over. Something from the sources that really stuck with me.
The afterimage of the rose.
Yes. Rudolf Steiner's challenge.
The next time you look at a flame, or a bright light, or a red rose, and then you look away, I want you to pay attention to that shadow that's left in your vision, that green or gray ghost.
And ask yourself this, is the afterimage the illusion, or was the flame just the shadow of something else entirely?
Maybe the ghost is the real thing and the fire was just the paint on the fourth wall.
Thanks for listening. Keep your eyes open.
And check your corners.